G'day guys, I have 10 amazing realistic Minecraft mods to go through for you guys today, and we're going to have a bit of a breakdown on how these mods actually work and a little bit more information about them. Let's get started. Starting off with Natural Progression. Natural Progression is a mod which enhances the early game mechanics of Minecraft with far more realistic ones. Instead of punching a tree the moment you spawn in the world, you instead have to go around and collect a couple of pebbles and twigs. By hitting these pebbles together, you can make yourself a piece of flint, which then you can use to make yourself a flint hatchet, which is then when you can finally get yourself some wood. But one thing to keep in mind here is you want to make sure that you strip the logs before you break them, because you need to have stripped logs in order to turn them into planks, which you turn them into planks by putting your stripped log and hatchet inside of a crafting table and get a singular plank per log. Of course, this is only when you're using a hatchet. Once you get yourself 4 bits of plank, make yourself a crafting table, use your flint and sticks to make yourself a saw, which you then can use in order to get your normal amount of planks per log. This theme also continues on with how they remove the entirety of the stone and wooden tool sets, basically meaning that you can't exactly just go straight from mining yourself a first bit of wood and going straight to mining stone and other things along those lines. Instead, you have to go out and collect yourself some bones as well. Now, the good thing about this is bones also have the ability to drop from a majority of mobs, including passive ones, making them pretty easy to get by. And when you smash a flint and a bone together in your hands, you can get yourself some bone shards, which by using a single bone shard and a crafting recipe with 2 sticks, you can make yourself a bone pickaxe which can mine iron. And then you get to proceed into the regular Minecraft experience. Moving on to Realistic Terrain Generation. Realistic Terrain Generation is a mod for 1.12 that changes world generation to be far more realistic than normal Minecraft. This mod gives vanilla deserts a more dune-like feel, gives forests far more taller trees to really make the biome dense like a forest would be, making plains far more flat overall and adding some bushes as well, and turning the mesa into massive canyons, ultimately making the world feel far more realistic than the normal vanilla Minecraft world. Moving into Realistic Blocks Physics. Realistic Blocks Physics is a realistic overhaul of Minecraft's building mechanics that will add a new sense of challenge and immersion into your worlds. Each block has been given its own unique physics definition that defines its mass, ability to support other blocks, fragility, and other many attributes. Gone are the days of random floating blocks in those unrealistically constructed buildings, as you're now required to undergo logical construction to ensure your structures don't collapse. Caves are also deemed to be more damaged, as mining the wrong block could cause up the ceiling actually collapsing on you. Basically, it adds gravity to a majority of blocks in Minecraft, but not quite like how gravity affects stuff like sand or gravel, for example, as those just typically fall the moment there's nothing underneath them. What this one does instead is it gives a different variance depending on how much a certain block is able to hold up a certain collection of other blocks. Meaning you can build a tower up and have a few blocks go off that tower before you have one that will actually just fall off and not be connected to the tower that you created, and other things along those lines. Basically, situations where you have to put a little bit more effort into actually making structures towards your blocks and all these other buildings, making it a little bit more intricate and having a bit more of a realistic design philosophy when you're creating your builds. And then of course the key thing of being very careful when in caves. This has not been updated to 1.18 as of yet, it's currently on 1.16, but that might change in the future. In a similar vein, we now have realistic explosion physics to go alongside with it, made by the same exact user on CurseForge as well. It's just kind of a pairing mod to go along with it, which is ultimately really cool. Ultimately, it just gives more of a realistic momentum to the blocks whenever this gets affected by explosion. Instead of simply just breaking the blocks into their item form, they actually go flying and resettle themselves into a new area. Of course, not all blocks will actually do this. Some of them will just break and turn to their item form depending on how many get affected by TNT blast, but the top layer of blocks or the top few layers of blocks nearby will ultimately get flung and will fly and land to many different places, ultimately giving a bit more realism to create craters and flying debris of blocks whenever you do cause any form of explosion, and this can cause some pretty cool things when you explode buildings and other things along those lines. Moving on to our next mod known as TreeChop. TreeChop allows trees to be chopped down repeatedly by breaking a single block. The whole tree will only break after a certain number of chops on this one block, and bigger trees require more chops. Basically, the idea behind this is that when you go and attack a tree, you'll break the first bit of wood that you're attacking layer by layer, and the amount of chops required per log will require on how tall the actual tree is. For example, 1 tree block, it will just require 1 chop. 3 tree blocks will require 3 tree chops, but 5 tree blocks or a 5 log tree will require 3 chops, 10 block tree requires 7, 20 requires 12, 50 requires 19 chops, and 100 blocks requires 25 chops. Basically, over the size of bigger trees, it makes your tree cutting experience that much more efficient, because once you do the required chops on the one log, not only does it save you a bit more durability, it also saves you time, as it will just break the entire tree and all the items will come falling down to you. This not only works with single tree blocks, we also have the 2x2 type trees will also work very well with, and it also is compatible with a majority of modded trees, for example a red wool tree from Biomes O'Plenty. Moving on to our next mod, we've got More Axolotls mod. The More Axolotls mod is a mod that is built to add in a bunch of new axolotl variations that are more themed off of realistic type of axolotls. Not only does it do that, it adds in new custom textures for the axolotl bucket for each variation, specific breed to obtain specific variations, put big drip leaves on axolotls for extra armor that can be repaired with bone meal, and so many other bits and pieces. It's not an entirely a realistic based mod, but the main premise of it is to add in a bunch of new axolotl variations based on what some axolotls look like in real life. Moving into our next mod known as Realistic Bees. The Realistic Bees mod is a mod that attempts to make bee behavior just a little bit more realistic without adding any new items or objects to the game. Bees have 25% of their normal size, and whenever a bee stings a player or an entity, it has a chance to leave its stinger behind. When this happens, the bee will be frozen in place and unfortunately not live a long life anymore. In real life, a stinger won't always be left behind when a bee stings, but when it does, the bee's abdomen will be taken out too, which is fatal for the bee. And this just adds that mechanic into normal bee behavior into Minecraft. When a stinger is left behind, it will continue to pump poison into its victim, and it is possible for players to take the stinger out by using a pair of shears to function as tweezers, otherwise the stinger will stop pumping in poison after 30 seconds by default. And of course there's another little bit of an adjustment that comes with this mod that makes bees just a little bit less uncommon than normal by making it so that an extra amount of bees spawn per natural bee by default is another 4. Moving on, we've got Realistic Fire Spread. Now the main idea behind this is to make fire spread a bit more realistic in Minecraft, and it's very simple. Any entities that are on fire will set fire to flammable blocks around them. This does include things such as arrows, any form of mobs that are on fire, and other things along those lines. Basically, if a pig that's currently on fire because they stepped too close to lava goes nearby, let's say a piece of wood or something like that, the wood will also be set aflame. Moving on to our next mod, we have Ottercraft. Ottercraft adds in, well, otters to the game. That's basically all that it does, but it adds in a bunch of different features with them. River otters spawn in rivers and swamp biomes. They are semi-aquatic creatures and love to play on both land and water. They're naturally curious and will follow nearby boats or swimming players. They are tameable and breedable with cod or salmon. Tame otters will wear life jackets and will follow you on your Minecraft adventures, and they love sitting on boats with you. Ultimately, these are just a pack of cute animals that you can collect on your Minecraft adventures, along with your typical axolotls, cats and dogs, and all the other animals that you might collect along your journey. Moving on to our next mod, we've got Mo Bends. Now you've probably heard of this mod before, as it's a pretty common mod, and it's a very cool and amazing mod overall, as it adds in all new animations towards not only the Minecraft player themselves, but to every single mob in the game, making them act and look a lot different to what they normally would. Now currently this mod is stuck on 1.12, but it is currently in the process of being updated to 1.16.5. Just these animations do take a fair bit of time to create, but overall it still makes for an amazing mod regardless of that factor. Even if it's stuck behind in 1.12 currently, it's still a really cool mod and very immersive when it comes down to the added animations that all mobs now have. Either way, make sure to hit this video on screen right now if you want to explore some more mods that will potentially destroy your computer when you play with them. Until next one guys, bye bye.